Hi, everybody. Let's talk about some of the barriers, matter of fact, top three out of a pretty long list of why we don't do a better job in delegating and empowering others. Let's start off with one of the really big ones, and that is insecurity. Now, that isn't exactly a good descriptor, but what that is leaders have such a fear, such a huge fear of someone, especially someone above them on the organizational chart, saying, where are we with, and us looking them right in the eye and saying, you know what, I don't know. Leaders, for some reason, a lot of leaders are extraordinarily terrified by that, possibility. Effective leaders, and you know what, one session ago we talked about getting comfortable with language. Here's another case where I want you to get comfortable with some language. Effective leaders are really good at saying, you know what, I don't know. Now, they don't leave it there. They say, I don't know, I'll find out and I'll get with you. But they're okay with saying, I don't know. They don't have that insecurity of having to know everything that's going on at all times in every file, in every project, in every task. They're okay saying, I don't know. Now, please do remember, add that little piece behind that of, I'll find out, I'll get back to you by 3 o'clock today. Add that piece, but get comfortable in saying, I don't know. It is not a reasonable leadership expectation that you are omnipresent and all-knowing. You know what? There's no organization in North America that expects that from their team or expects that from their leaders. It's okay to say, I don't know. Get over that particular insecurity. Second reason we don't do a really good job of empowering and delegating to others has a lot also to do with us. Now, I can remember probably the closest time that my wife ever set me on the curb and had me picked up by the trash man was a few years when I coached my oldest son in Little League Baseball. Now, I'm pretty good at the game of baseball. I played it a great deal and played it at some pretty high levels. But I got to tell you, what I discovered in that process is even though I had individual expertise, I wasn't able to translate that expertise into teaching others, especially teaching little kids. So it is in the working environment. So many leaders are so invested and so deep in their own expertise, especially in some of the you leaders that lead highly technical environments. You know it like the back of your hand. Well, that's great, but you know what? That depth of knowledge doesn't necessarily make you a good teacher, trainer, or explainer to others. And in fact, many times what that does is it leads you to skipping steps or being impatient or, being overly anticipatory of things. And plain and simply, experts don't always make very good teachers of things. One of the things I'd encourage you to think about there is if you have a high level of expert power, in fact, if that's why you were promoted, I'd find somebody else to teach and train other folks, because your expertise is really going to get in the way of teaching and training and showing people how to do things. You're not going to be good at showing them how to do a piece of empowered delegation or even explaining it to them. And then the third item, and this is one that becomes very individually challenging, and that is kind of a personal vanity. I know that's the second time we've used that word in this series, but there are tasks and projects and things that plain and simply leaders like to do. They get enjoyment and satisfaction. I've seen senior level, C-level leaders typing data into an Excel spreadsheet, and when challenged about it, you get down to the point of, well, they like doing it. It offers them a little bit of peaceful therapy. Well, that's good and that's all fine, but the reality of it is that at your level of a senior vice president, chief operating officer, you know what? There's a better use for your time than typing numbers into a spreadsheet. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad you get satisfaction from it, but give that to the appropriate level. This is a case where you should really challenge yourself just a little bit and, find out what you are doing that you're doing simply because you enjoy it and you've done it for a long period of time. While we ventured into that long period of time, I'm going to cover one more reason why we don't do a good job of delegating and empowering to others, and that is a little bit of a time equation piece. Many of us look at time in a very short-term and narrow kind of constraint. So if we have a task that takes us 15 minutes to do, and then compare that to the 30 minutes it's going to take me to explain it to somebody, and another 15 minutes in month 1 of checking their work, and another 15 minutes in month 2 of checking their work, and maybe even potentially making some corrections to it. A lot of leaders look at that and say, well, it's just 15 minutes. I'll just hang on to it and do it myself. Well, that narrow view of time is extraordinarily flawed. Effective leaders have to look at time as an investment. Yeah, it's going to take me 30 minutes up front, which means I'm upside down by 15, but my payoff is going to be in months 4 and 5 when I'm no longer doing that 15-minute piece. The other part of that is there's no leader that has just one singular 15-minute piece. Much more likely, there are lots of those tasks. And when you challenge yourself and say, okay, I'm going to move this 15-minute project and this 15-minute task and this 20-minute report, man, I tell you what, you move that and invest some time up front in teaching and coaching other folks how to do it and how to get through it, you're going to find yourself with a lot more capacity than you had before. A lot more capacity to lead and do things like coach and communicate and tone set.